This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Preparation is key. So you've made the agonising decision to leave a relationship. There has been endless soul-searching, buckets of tears, difficult conversations, heated arguments and tremendous guilt. But you are on the cusp of leaving. Today's episode of Tell Me Moir provides some insight about how to prepare for this monumental decision, where and how to seek advice, how to take care of yourself and others involved, what to put in before you get out. Welcome to Tell Me Moir, where the chats are candid, the laughs are loud and nothing is off limits. I'm Harriet Moir, and each episode I'm sitting down with brilliant women for no filter and no nonsense chats about, well, pretty much anything. Season 2 of Tell Me Moir is a series of conversations that dig into the nitty-gritty and need-to-knows of separation, divorce, custody issues, relationship property and family harm. Tell Me Moir dives right into the conversations we want to have but don't have time for, and the ones we don't want to have but we know we should. Are you ready for Tell Me Moir? This week on Tell Me Moir, we're breaking down how to prepare yourself for leaving a relationship. It's tempting to think that once you've made that agonising decision, the hard part is done. But in reality, it is all uncharted territory, and life can get even more unpredictable and complicated after the fact. And while no two separations are the same, a little preparation can go a long way for everyone involved. And I am absolutely delighted today to have two wonderful guests in the studio with me to muddle through this topic together. So I'd like to introduce Dani Nicolson. She is the director and owner of Ripple Legal and Resolution Services Limited, a boutique family law firm based here in Ōtepoti, Dunedin, New Zealand. The firm specialises in family law, relationship property and collaborative practice. The firm is also registered as an approved legal aid lawyer service provider. Dani operates out of Dunedin and brings specialised family law and collaborative practice expertise to individuals navigating relationship separations. Dani is also an accredited mediator, FDL provider and collaborative lawyer. And I'm sharing her bio straight from the Fairway website now, unashamedly. So Dani utilises collaborative practice and dispute resolution, keenly working with other professionals to support clients to find out-of-the-box solutions unique to their situation. She takes a special interest in working with clients to strengthen their communication and capacity for problem solving. So with an adventurous spirit, Dani thrives outdoors in the surf, rock climbing or running in the mountains. These pursuits provide a training ground for resilience, patience and stress nervous system management, powerful tools to share with clients coming to the table in a dispute resolution process. In both adventure and dispute resolution, Dani believes there are many paths to the top of the mountain, and it takes courage and effort to explore the winding paths and processes leading to conflict resolution, and Dani enjoys guiding clients along these journeys. So she's here today to answer questions and shed some light on things to think about when you're preparing to leave a relationship from a legal point of view. However, Dani is not your lawyer and this is not legal advice. So please be sure to speak to a lawyer about your specific situation. So after that very long introduction, welcome Dani. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thanks, Harriet. It's lovely to be here.
And we hadn't met before, so you're taking a big risk, going out on a limb. Hopefully the recommendation from Rochelle was enough for you to think, okay, this might be okay.
Yeah, you promised me some laughs and humour, so
there we go. That's what I can deliver on, I can guarantee. Right, and my other guest today is Cathie-Clark, a registered clinical psychologist with an incredible 30 years of experience. Originally from West Auckland, Tara is a triple alumni of the University of Otago and spent over 2 decades directing her own practice before moving to her current role as a consultant at 360 Health in Dunedin. Tara isn't just a clinician with an impressive resume. She's an emotionally intelligent, genuine professional who knows how to cut right to the core of an issue. She's a certified trauma specialist, an EMDRIA accredited practitioner, and a police-approved psychologist. Tara works extensively with individuals and couples. She helps people at every single stage of the relationship journey. And she doesn't just know the academic theory, she has lived it too. Tara brings profound personal empathy to her practice. She knows firsthand what it's like to navigate separation, blend family with adult kids and stepchildren, build a healthy dynamic with an ex-husband, no mean feat, and ultimately find new love, having just happily remarried in 2025. Coincidentally, Tara is also an adventure sportswoman, and for the past decade she's been heavily involved with women's adventure racing in particular, which means she also spends hours rafting, hiking and mountain biking through the remote, rugged wilderness of the South Island with a team of fierce women. One of her favourite sayings is every mountain has a top, which I love because you said Dani said there are many paths to the top of the mountain, and you said the mountain always has a top. So you're both talking about the same thing, and the different ways you can get there, which I love. What a happy coincidence. That Tara has learned and earned that every mountain has a top while adventure racing, but uses it to get herself through tough times as well. And similarly to Dani, Tara is here to offer some insight from a clinical psychologist's perspective, but she is not your counsellor. So please seek professional support for your specific situation. Welcome, Tara.
Kia ora kōrua.
It is so lovely to have you here. We've known each other for quite a while now, many, many years actually, and I just knew you were the perfect person to have on board today. So thank you for coming and being here.
You're welcome.
In essence, we've got a real opportunity here to get a perspective of both the practical and the emotional aspects of preparing to leave a relationship. And we've got a lot to cover, so we're just going to get cracking and rip the Band-Aid off. So leaving a relationship is often described as one of the most difficult things you can ever do. The implications can be long-lasting, far-reaching and deeply painful, and sometimes it may seem easier to stay. So I want to begin by saying that most of what we're going to talk about today is essentially through the lens of like a mainstream separation situation where perhaps abuse or high conflict are not at the forefront. We will delve into that a little bit later on, but for the most part, I'd like to just talk about like sort of average Kiwi couple here. So a couple of questions for both of you together to begin with, and just dive in as you see fit. What do you see as being the most common reasons that people stay in unhappy marriages these days?
Yeah, probably the same reasons people stay in lots of situations that are not ideal for them. I often see people wanting to stick around for the children.
Yeah.
That's probably a really big one, this belief that a united family is in the best interest of the child. People have a fear of failing, shame around not being able to stick with a marriage or achieve that. And then the financial side of things as well is a big one that I see, I'd say. How about you, Tara?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think some of the most common barriers are financial, worry for the children, and there can be a strong pro-social guilt, which is that fear that my partner won't cope without me. So a lot of people stay because they think I can't really leave the other person. There's also,
which is to interrupt already, which is a different type of guilt to what you were just talking about. You were talking about the shame, like perhaps that you haven't been able to achieve this successful ideal of a marriage that lasts.
Marriage, that's right.
Yeah, as opposed to the guilt of like leaving because you believe they won't cope without you. Yeah.
But I agree with Dani about that identity loss when you leave a marriage or a relationship of long status. It's a sense that you're losing a big sense of who you are, of, part of a partnership, a relationship that's often embedded in lots of other relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, Maria spoke the other day in an interview about how that there's actually three people in a marriage. There's the individuals and then there's the unit. And that often takes precedence, or we believe that takes precedence. So yes, I absolutely agree that would be that is a barrier for sure.
A couple of other things are, I think, hope. Sometimes you stay because there's moments that are really good, and you think, oh, here we are doing well. This feels good. We're back to where we were, but actually it doesn't last. And there's the role of fear, which I think the fear of the unknown is huge. And what a brave decision it is sometimes to step into that unknown.
Yes, and I know from first-hand experience, you can sit on one side of the decision and imagine all the possible scenarios and often the worst-case scenarios, but you actually truly can't know what's on the other side of the door until you walk through it, right?
Absolutely.
But we do tend to sit and go, well, if I do this, this will happen, and that might happen, and that might happen, but really, like, the possibilities are vast and endless.
Yes, and our brain likes patterns and predictability. So we know this relationship, and even if it's annoying because we have that same argument on a Tuesday night over how you stack a dishwasher, or the passive-aggressive comment when you come home about being a bit late, and the argument that ensues, at least you know that pattern, whereas when you're leaving, it's just a complete void.
Yeah, right.
So that's the devil you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
the right phrase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I must say, it is really empowering when you just get to stack your own dishwasher.
That's the
you
bonus.
underestimate how good that feels.
How wonderful those little freedoms are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Not that I'm saying that don't get me wrong, this is not about encouraging people to leave because of the dishwasher. So lots of people will tell you that most relationships go through difficult phases, and then it's worth trying to stick it out. And this is a question for you, Tara. Like, what would some of the big indicators or patterns be that would help you know the difference between like a difficult phase in the relationship versus a relationship that might need to end?
It's such a good question, because a lot of people come with that same dilemma. Like, how do I know when enough is enough? How do I know when I've done enough? And with a broken bone, for instance, you can go to the doctor, you can get an x-ray and they say it's broken.
Yeah.
But with a relationship, there's no diagnostic tool to do that.
Yeah.
So I think there are some red flags, though, that you can think about.
Sure.
And I think there's probably a top 4 for me. If there's contempt, disdain, sort of disrespect in the relationship.
Right, yeah.
It's pretty toxic to stay in a relationship like that. So you can't be partners if one person's kind of looking down on the other person.
Sure.
So if there's sort of toxic, chronic levels of disdain or contempt or disrespect for another, that would be one thing I would look out for.
Are those things that could be worked on?
Definitely they can be worked on. All of the things here can be worked on. It's when it's a sort of a pattern of pervasive not working on it. So
I suppose it would take 2 of them to work on something like that if it's a toxic dynamic.
Absolutely, and that's one of the other things, is not being unified. So anything can kind of be worked through if 2 people are working on it together.
Yes.
But if there's only one person working on stuff, which is often the case, that can be a kind of red flag for me. But of course, I'm pro relationships lasting, so I want people to make their relationships last. So we'll always kind of think about couples counselling and encourage that, and other sorts of advice.
Yeah.
Another red flag would probably be apathy.
Yes,
So kind of the opposite of the fighting. In a way, the fighting is a good sign because you've still got energy for the relationship.
Yeah, right.
And it's like we're having a bit of argy-bargy and we are nutting this out. And there's nothing really wrong with that, providing you do it with the kids out of the room.
Yeah.
You're still tussling for something that matters. But when apathy hits, it's kind of the loss of the fight.
Sure.
And that's actually quite a serious sign, because you're no longer even...
You don't care.
You don't care.
Yeah, you're done.
You're no longer putting in any energy into the relationship. And so you often see people who have lived together a long time and they're really like ships in the night. There's no emotional intimacy. There's no kind of sharing of stuff. That would be the third one. The fourth one and the final one I wanted to talk about was really chronic boundary violations.
Yeah.
So if people are continuously being deceitful or lying or addictions that aren't being managed, most relationships can survive these sorts of things, but you need to be able to commit to understanding why you've done that and to perhaps therapy, understanding and really working on those things, because it's the chronic repetition of those things that probably would be another red flag for me without any therapy.
Sure. Yeah, okay. I was thinking about the apathy, and lots of people just sit in that, don't they, forever?
Oh, that's so comfortable.
And so is that like a red flag to leave? Or some people are happy with that, aren't they?
Yep.
Or they don't know that they're not happy, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or that there's potentially more out there or something.
And there are good reasons to stay, like, children, finances. Yeah. So there's no judgment in that.
Of course.
Some people, there are many happy many relationships that survive the time. Yeah. In exactly that state.
And so, Dani, the legal side of things is a big minefield that's more often than not completely new territory for couples who are separating. And so what are some of the biggest kind of legal mistakes that people make when they're thinking about leaving a relationship? So they haven't left yet, but what do people do? Do they panic and set up separate bank accounts, and which is not necessarily a bad thing? I don't know. What are the things?
Yeah, I guess maybe you'll have to tell me off for doing this a little bit, but lawyers get caught up in semantics. So what do you mean by legal mistakes?
So I guess when I'm thinking about legal preparation to leave, I guess you're thinking about money, maybe the kids, maybe perhaps if there are safety concerns. So I guess legal, it's just like what are the things that people do maybe in the heat of the moment or like in a panic mode that perhaps they shouldn't have done, or perhaps would have been better off not doing?
Yeah, I think I would start by saying that the majority of families, they don't really make mistakes because they're not, or legal mistakes because they're not ending up in the family court.
Yes.
Like we might look at sort of, so if we're not looking at families in the family court, then it's a much more gentle process.
Sure.
And it's not
they're not do's and don'ts.
Not sudden, exactly. Yeah. If you're looking at a family court or a family with a really low trust, then yes, there might be some mistakes that they make. For example, not gathering enough information before the family separates, and then the person with all of the control of the assets might relinquish any information for the other person. People might, although it's not determinative, there is an idea that if you form a pattern of childcare arrangements when you separate, then that status quo could be difficult to challenge in the future, and that's because this idea of continuity and stability is best for the children. That kind of thing. Yeah. But in the majority of relationships, it's much more of a give or take, forgiving, let's figure this out kind of situation.
Yeah, okay. That's good to hear. And perhaps I could have rephrased it as like, instead of saying what legal mistakes do people make, perhaps I should have said what preparations can they make. Maybe that would have been a better way to frame that question. But I think that's good to hear. Like, I understand what you're saying about how, generally speaking, it's not in a legal context anyway, because you're not talking about a court process, hopefully.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So when do people typically get a lawyer involved then? Like, if it's quite a straightforward dynamic and they've worked everything out, financially, custody, whatever, between them, is it just really a lawyer to kind of look over each party's stuff and go, sign it on the dotted line?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is something that people often don't really know when the lawyer is supposed to get involved. So ideally, I would always say that if you get the information at the start of the process, then you're most informed to make the decisions that you need to make. So even having a one-off appointment with a lawyer can be really helpful, just to know what processes are available and what rights and remedies are available if you need to go down certain avenues. In terms of the processes that are available, you kind of have a whole spectrum of processes. At one end, you've got the low intervention kind of process where you've got two people that can sit around the kitchen table and they can make the decisions themselves. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got the really highly interventionist process of the family court, where you might have lawyers involved and you're ultimately having a judge making the decision.
Yeah.
And then in between, you've got other processes like a little bit more intervention, where you might have a mediator who's just facilitating the conversations or support people. You might have divorce coaches. And then at the other kind of closer to the family court spectrum, you might have those lawyer-led negotiations. And then in the middle, you might have something like a collaborative process where both people have a lawyer involved, but you're all committed to not going through a court process, and you're actually resolving things via meetings rather than those kind of adversarial lawyer.
Yeah, and I should just jump in there and say we are going to explore all of those things in much more detail in the next episode.
Yeah.
To just help people understand the processes that exist and the systems that exist, and help people prepare for any of those things. So yeah.
So in terms of when the lawyer should get involved, it really comes down to the particular family and the process that they're going for. The only times when you actually really need a lawyer involved is if you are going through a separation agreement type process, and that you actually do need a lawyer to sign and certify the agreement with you.
Okay.
And then the other process is if you're actually transferring real estate, and then you do need a conveyancing lawyer to do that.
Yes.
But there are plenty of families that, if, for example, they don't have significant property, they don't even need to see a lawyer through the separation.
Okay. And so, like, how do you go about finding a lawyer, or like, what if you don't have money for a lawyer, which was very much my case, and you know, I didn't know what to do because I had half of zero is zero in terms of separation, you know, financial property and stuff. Like, what services are available?
Yeah, it is a tricky one because lawyers do cost money. There is legal aid available if you're going into a family court proceeding. That's not really available prior to that. There is a service called Family Legal Advice Service, which provides a one-off appointment with a lawyer to talk through parenting arrangements.
Okay.
And you can access that if you're eligible for legal aid.
Okay.
And they can also go on to help you prepare court documents if you need to. But they're isolated services and they're funded. Okay. The Community Law Otago and the Citizens Advice Bureau might provide some general information. Otipoti, Dunedin Whānau Refuge, they do have some funding for families that are experiencing family violence. There's some litigation funding available through various institutions, but that's more available, I suppose, in commercial context, because the idea is that they often take a cut of whatever's the proceeds.
Yeah.
So maybe in relationship property, that could be an option. And there's other really helpful general advice from the family court team in Dunedin, and also there's a family court navigator, Jas Adlin, the Kairahi, and she is really helpful at connecting people and has some general information that she can give people.
People just contact the family court directly for that, or do you need to go through someone to be able to access that information? Or
well, if you wanted to make some sort of application, you can just go down to the court and talk to the duty registrar behind the counter, and they can point you in the right direction of the applications.
Yeah.
If it's a lawyer that's needed, well, I mean, obviously it's ideal to have a lawyer going through the family court, but that's not possible for everybody.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking back to the question before that of how to go about finding someone. I think it is good to find someone that aligns with your values and needs. Because you need that relationship of trust and confidence. And word of mouth is probably the best way to go about it. And it would be similar for psychologists, I imagine.
Definitely.
And then websites can be helpful. You know, if you see a website that's got get results and has a list of wins in the court, then you might not go with that person if you want an out-of-court process, more collaborative. But, I mean, those lawyers are also needed in certain circumstances.
Definitely. It's so interesting. Like, I had no understanding of any of that when I went, when I was separating. Like, it's just like a big unknown thing. And so interesting. We're just going to have a little word from our sponsor.
Going through a separation? You don't have to face it alone. Rochelle Crossman is a specialist family law barrister, helping clients move forward with clarity and care. She focuses on collaborative resolution of the issues that arise from separation, from relationship property division to care arrangements for children, keeping matters respectful and out of court where possible. But when court is required, she's there to advocate strongly. Find a better path forward. Find out more at rochellecrossman.co.nz.
Thank you once again to Rochelle for so generously sponsoring this second season of Tell Me Moir. So Tara, now in terms of, we're touching on some of the legal preparations you can make, but Tara, in terms of emotionally preparing yourself to leave, one thing that I hadn't anticipated was an immense amount of grief. And we talked about that earlier in terms of like the sadness. Yeah. And so how can someone, like, it's a mix. There's grief, there's guilt, but there's also relief in some cases. Absolutely. So like how can you prepare yourself for all of those feelings or how to be in those feelings?
Yeah. So confusing the end of a long-term relationship with guilt, feeling like you've failed or that you're doing something really bad versus grief. I think grief is a good way of shifting from guilt to grief. And almost like grief and relief, there's two sides to separating. There's the grief that can feel deep and painful, and then there's also the relief of not having to put up with the stress of a difficult relationship anymore. So it's allowing yourself to kind of sit with the two contradictory truths, that there's both grief and relief in the same movement. Yeah,
absolutely. And you all feel varying degrees of those things on different days of the week. And
absolutely.
Yeah, in an ongoing capacity too, probably. Yeah.
Yep. I think one of the things that can be quite useful for people to do is write a list. I just say, get a piece of paper, fold it in half, an A4 piece of paper, and on the left-hand side, write everything you'll miss about the relationship. And then on the right-hand side, write everything you won't miss. And this kind of helps people to acknowledge both sides of the two hands.
Definitely.
That actually, there's stuff I'm really going to miss and there's stuff that I won't miss at all.
One side is generally longer than the other, I'd say. Just hedging my bets here. And then another column of like, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. And actually, even just seeing it written down can really be helpful for people because exactly what you said, it's like, wow, there's a lot of reasons to leave.
It's your pros and cons. And so in terms of support networks, gathering people around you for something like this, is it, what can people do to kind of, I know that there's always sometimes when people are leaving, there's this whole big like, well, not many people know, and I bump into so-and-so in the supermarket and they're like, oh, how are you going? And you're like, well, I'm fine, but I just left my relation, like what do you say? What do you do? And is it a good idea to kind of just have one person who's your person carrying the can or try and distribute the load?
I would say throw that net quite wide.
Yes.
And have as many people on that support network as possible. I remember when I separated, I had a list of like 30 people, and if I couldn't get the first person on the phone, I'd phone the next person. And then I'd have different people on the list that I would be thinking, I need a laugh right now, and so I'd
that
phone
person.
that person. Or I need
you
to
never
go
called me.
I tried, Harriet. You were not there.
It's also about preserving those friendships, isn't it? Because you don't want them to get compassion fatigue or
yes, exactly.
overburdened.
Definitely. Yeah,
exactly. You've got to share that load.
Yeah.
Because it's a long process, and you don't want to burn any of your friends out.
Yes.
So it's actually, but I really want to encourage people to use that support network. Like, feel like this is what your friends are for.
Lean in.
This is what your family are for. Like, yes, absolutely.
For these times.
That's exactly what they're there for, and they want to be there for you. And so, but you do need to share that load. And, you know, some of your friends are the friends you can vent with and get angry with, and they're not going to judge your ex. And they're going to be able to be reasonable with that person when they next see them. Others won't be able to maintain that kind of boundary. And so you be thoughtful about who you reach out to at certain times.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the other support network is professional people.
Yes,
so
of course.
I would always suggest to my clients, think about going to see a lawyer as early as possible just to get the lay of the land. Financial advice can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So those would be...
So they can strategize before.
Yep. And therapists for kids, or if you're worried about your partner and you've got that pro-social guilt, it can be a good thing to kind of link. You know, you can only sort of say, look, I think as we're going through this separation, I'm worried that I'd like you to get some more support.
Some help. Yeah. And so on that note, like lots of couples do go through couples counselling before coming to this kind of final decision. Mm-hmm. Do you often see that as being a bit of a last resort, or is it something on the way? And what are your thoughts about like couples going to see a counsellor to help navigate through separation? Like they might have already made the decision, or they're on the cusp of making the decision, and is it helpful to have some kind of guidance?
Yeah. Couples counselling, great. Earlier on, the better.
Yeah.
Great to use it if you've decided to separate. Let's do this well.
Yeah.
Also parenting through separation courses. Excellent.
Yes, absolutely.
You want to really put your kids, if you've got children, you want to put your kids at the top of your kind of thinking and make sure that you're doing parenting well for them. You may not be together anymore as a couple, but you're still parents.
Yeah. Absolutely. And okay, so we will be touching on the financial side of things in a lot of depth in episode 4, but I've just got one question for you about that, Dani, and that is, what happens if there's one partner in that relationship who's controlling all the money? So like you're imagining that you're about to leave, but there's one of you that sort of holds the purse strings. Do you have some advice about how to manage that, or?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal scenario, you would both sit down and work out how you're actually going to keep the family going post-separation.
Yeah.
And there are ways, I mean, there are legal rights and remedies. You can look at spousal maintenance. You can look at an interim distribution of relationship property. And in terms of an ongoing relationship, you do actually have an obligation to support each other post-relationship for a period of time to make sure that you can meet your reasonable needs. So yes, ideally, you would sit down and figure all of that out. There are, of course, as I talked about before, some relationships where there's a low level of trust. And in those circumstances, I would say go and see a lawyer and understand what kind of information you might need to protect and gather before you lose that opportunity to gather the information if that person with control of the assets is going to stop you from getting access. That.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And so then in terms of you made the decision and it's you who is moving out, I guess not necessarily. You may have decided that your partner is the one who's leaving, but what options are there for people who can't afford to leave in the short term? Like how, I don't know if either of you've come across that. Like do you see couples managing to coexist?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening more and more.
Of course,
And
because it's hard. It's much more, like financially, it's much more difficult these days to.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite inspiring how people are managing to coexist and co-share houses and coming up with creative ideas like nesting and making things work. If they have family support, they're going back and forwards between the families.
So like the nesting is that the family home stays the same, but the partners might move out for a week.
Yep.
And let's swap over, like go and stay with family. Is that what you're saying or something?
That's right.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see.
And then if one person is the predominant income earner, as I said before, there are mechanisms like maintenance or an interim distribution of property so that one person can move out and renting or however it is that they set it up.
Yeah. Okay. Right. In terms of living arrangements, what's the advice, like in terms of the kids? Let's say it is a slightly high conflict situation, like in terms of leaving, if you're the one who's leaving, do you leave the kids at home? Do you take them with you? What do you do? What's the advice?
Oh, yeah, that is a tricky one. It's always going to come down to the best interests of the kids and their age and stage and their attachments and the location of their school and the practical realities with finances. As I said earlier, there is a principle or an idea that continuity of care and stability is really important for children. So if you did create some sort of status quo arrangement, that would that can be a bit more difficult to challenge in the future. But I suppose I would add again that there are a small number of these cases that end up in the family court. So most of these arrangements can be figured out within the families, and sometimes it might be a gradual change in care arrangements. If one parent has had sort of more of the care role of the kids, then they might continue with that, and then it might change gradually.
Yeah, okay.
And then other families obviously are happy to do it however.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's so circumstance specific, isn't it? It's very hard to give very general and broad advice about all of this stuff because no two situations are the same. So, but in terms of talking to your children about the separation, perhaps this is something to throw to you a wee bit, Tara. What do you think children need the most from their parents during a separation?
I think you need to have a plan that's communicated together. So once you have a plan and you've both agreed on a plan, this is in the ideal situation, then you communicate that to the children together as if it's a we. And what children need is clear information about the day-to-day changes. So it might be like, Dad's going to pick you up tomorrow, or the dog's going to be here. Yeah. Your PlayStation's going to be here.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes we encourage them to have a calendar with bright colours of when they're seeing mum and dad.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah, kids need to kind of know the plan. There's some other things they need, just calm, emotionally in control parents. If you're telling the kids, make sure you've got yourself emotionally in a good space, because if you start crying when you're telling the kids, then they'll start looking after you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they'll start tidying themselves up and looking after their parents. So try to be in a pretty solid plan for it. There's some don'ts as well. The kids don't need to know who did what. They don't need to know. A nice simple thing is we've decided we're better as friends than as married, and a no blame kind of. It's very tempting to kind of blame the other, but actually not very helpful for the children.
No.
They're so loyal to both parents. So it puts them in a really difficult predicament if you do that. it's
what about so yeah, you sort of touched on it, and sort of some ideas for how to manage your own emotions without placing those burdens on the kids. Like, because one thing I remember was that it was always really difficult for my ex-husband and I to find time to have the conversations because you're managing the kids all the time, or as you say, you might have just had a heated conversation and then you have to go in and present to the children in a calm way or whatever, or a united way when you are really not. Or like what are some ways to kind of manage all of that?
Yes, it's tricky, isn't it, when you're dealing with your own heightened feelings, this fight and flight response, and it's not an easy thing to do, but where possible, you want to communicate together. You might agree on a message, but give it to them independently.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to absolutely reinforce that it's nothing the kids have
to do with them. Yeah.
Because children tend to be very egocentric and they just think everything that happens around them is because of them. So if I had a tantrum last Tuesday, now my parents are splitting up. It's like
it was a really big tantrum.
Yeah. And it's like I have killed my parents' relationship.
Yeah,
so a lot of, they need to hear it a lot, that this is nothing you've done, that we both love you unconditionally.
Yeah.
A lot of that kind of messaging. And permission to feel. So let them talk about their feelings.
Yes.
It's really important. And don't kind of pass on your own parental fears and anxieties like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where the money's coming from.
Yeah, right.
All of that
adult
kind of
stuff.
You don't want to kind of pass on that stuff or the messy kind of custody details or the stress around finances. You want to protect the kids from that information. Just, it's like that proverbial duck swimming underneath. You're trying to manage all of these things with your ex, but on the top of the water you're looking like all's well.
Yes, right.
And it's also important to be
it's
real.
It's really hard to do that.
Hard,
it's the hardest thing in the world.
And it's also okay. I remember my son looking at me and I was crying and I said, I'm okay. I just need to phone my friend. I'll feel better when I've spoken to her.
Yeah.
I'm going to just need a big cry. And then a quarter of an hour later.
Yeah.
So don't try and hide your emotions
either.
It's
got to be real.
You've got to be real because that's modelling also to them.
To allow them to express what they're feeling. Absolutely.
And it's normal and life is normal. This is life.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I feel like I was maybe a bit disastrous at some of that. Anyway, so just to talk briefly now. Oh, actually, I'm just gonna flip to another word from our sponsor.
Going through a separation? You don't have to face it alone. Rochelle Crossman is a specialist family law barrister, helping clients move forward with clarity and care. She focuses on collaborative resolution of the issues that arise from separation, from relationship property division to care arrangements for children, keeping matters respectful and out of court where possible. But when court is required, she's there to advocate strongly. Find a better path forward. Find out more at rochellecrossman.co.nz.
Thank you, Rochelle Crossman, for sponsoring Season 2 of Tell Me Moir. Okay, so we've been speaking largely about sort of very typical and average separation situations. I just want to delve briefly into some tips and tricks, perhaps tips and tricks, it sounds so fickle, but perhaps for leaving high conflict situations. Now, we're going to delve into this much more deeply in episodes 5 and 6, but just a question to both of you. Can you think of some sort of, on top of what we've already talked about, perhaps some extra precautions that someone might take if they're leaving an abusive or controlling relationship, like in terms of the legal advice that they seek or the services that they seek or how to look after themselves in that process, support, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if there are those kinds of red flags where there is signs of abuse, violence, coercive control, I would suggest or strongly suggest that they see a lawyer early on and understand the lay of the land. and also have a team around them. And you talked about that too, Tara, before, but having a big wraparound team, because everyone in that team is going to have different skills or things that they can offer them.
Yeah. Okay. Tara?
Yeah, with coercive controlling relationships, it's quite different advice. Sometimes you have to plan to leave.
Yeah.
And do that covertly.
Yes.
It's not safe if you have a very controlling person in your life to say, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
It's actually a very high risk time. So sometimes the advice is around getting ready to leave. It might be like having a bag that's packed in the back of your car, spare car keys somewhere.
Getting documents
numbers,
and things out of the house.
Absolutely. Yep. It can be getting numbers in your phone that you can readily dial. Women's Refuge, Shine, are two New Zealand organisations that can support you to leave. You can phone Women's Refuge and they'll come and pick you up in the middle of the night wherever or whenever. So that's quite good to have talked about that ahead of time. Just often clients don't need to use it, but it's good for people to have a plan. Yep.
And I think, again, information is empowering.
It is.
In these sorts of circumstances.
Yes. Yeah.
So talk to services, perhaps talk to the police, talk to Women's Refuge.
Yes, absolutely. Kind of thinking ahead, you might not ever need this, but have, note 111, have the Women's Refuge dialed into your number. All of that kind of information.
And so what, like, in terms of documenting behaviour, is that a good idea, Dani? If their safety is a concern, is it a good idea to have a note in your phone to be keeping a list of things, or what would be your advice?
Yeah, if we're talking about these more extreme circumstances that may end up in the family court makes decisions based on evidence, so it's going to be considered more reliable evidence if you've noted down the incidents as they arrive, because it's easier to remember what you had for breakfast yesterday than 3 weeks ago. So if you can do that in a safe way, I would recommend doing that.
And that's the thing too, isn't it? Doing it in a safe way. So what do you think that looks like?
Oh, good question. It might be, you might need to engage friends to help you out. You might be emailing friends. It might be creating a separate email account, something like that. Having locks or two-factor authentication on your devices.
The digital privacy question is quite interesting too, isn't it? Like, in terms of protecting, you might be communicating with friends about the high conflict situation, or I know in my case I wasn't actually directly able to communicate with my family for a period of time because I wasn't allowed to have a phone, and so in the end he went through the trash of my email and found stuff. So a friend had forwarded stuff to me from my family that had been sent to her because they were communicating, and then she'd send it to me and I'd put it in my trash. And then, so I wish, I guess it would have been better to have perhaps a whole new email account or something. But you don't think about these things. It's the first time you're going through them, and interesting. Yes. And I was going to, in terms of setting boundaries when you're in a volatile situation, part of the problem is that they often don't want to acknowledge your boundaries. But what are some things that you could do you think? What if you're still under the same roof, you haven't left yet, or even immediately after leaving?
So in a coercive relationship, the goal of the person who's being coercive is to have control. So one of the things you can do is we call it grey rock, try and become really, really boring and really unreactive. And usually the person finds that pretty they're not getting what they need.
Yeah.
So you want to really try and minimise your dialogue with them. Don't be reacting to things. Sometimes you might receive
being reactive.
Yeah, you might receive a big long text that says 7 personal insults, and then what time do I pick up Jack from soccer? And just ignore the 7 insults and just respond to the soccer finishes at 4:30. I'll drop him off at 5.
Yeah.
So really kind of not picking up what's being put down, the invitation.
It's really hard though, Tara, because it can be so hurtful and
Absolutely.
so cruel and all of those things, and you're like, but I'm not that person, and you want to, but
it's so unfair a lot of the time in these relationships.
But you
really
are so
is.
right. The grey rocking is the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other method, which is quite good in written communication, is a thing called BIF, which stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
Yes.
And so you want any communication to follow those rules, because this is a person who wants to keep you engaged.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to not be manipulated into staying in the conversation, which is actually just you being an attempt to control you or hurt you further.
Yeah.
So if you think of that grey rock and the BIF method, where any communication is brief, informative, friendly, but firm. So again, in that example of picking your son up from the soccer game, it's brief. Hey, the game ends at 4:30. I'll drop him off at 5. It's informative. It's friendly. It's firm. And you can even end it with like have a good day.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it's a biff.
Yeah, it's a biff.
Like an uppercut.
So we are getting close to having to wrap up. Unfortunately, I feel like we could have spent an entire afternoon talking about this stuff. So just to maybe end on a slightly more positive note, what, in your experience, do you see that surprises people, like in a positive way, about life after separation? Both of you, either of you. Like I know. You were talking about worrying that a partner won't cope or something. You know that they won't cope without you. Sometimes that stuff is like, they actually did.
They're doing okay. Yeah. Sometimes it's the little things, like the little freedoms. You were talking about those in the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
The little freedoms. I'm like, I can lie in my bed right across it.
Yeah.
I can put these things here in the house. I can just make myself toast for tea.
Yeah.
It's the freedoms and the autonomy and the choices, I think, that you have, that being out of a relationship can make you discover yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of growth and strength. I think strength is something that's really, really, you learn what you can cope with.
Yes, people don't realise how capable they are. Yeah.
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 And that is a really great thing to know about yourself, that you can handle tough things. It's a bit like that. Every mountain has a top. Like, I think that idea that every day you take a step forward, you're moving one step closer to the sunshine. And so those crappy days where you just feel like this is just awful, I don't know what I'm doing, my life is imploded, go to bed early and get up the next day. Tomorrow's another day.
I remember a friend telling me that you can't eat the elephant all at once. That was also a good analogy. And just like, what is the most immediate thing? And I'll just deal with that.
That's exactly.
And then I'll just deal with the next thing, and then I'll just deal with the next thing.
One step at a time.
And I'll have a couple of days where I don't deal with anything at all, and then just sort of gradually, because it is so overwhelming, the whole big picture.
Absolutely, especially that first few weeks.
Yeah, the unknown, as you said.
What have I done?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and so just to throw to both of you, what's the one bit of advice that you wish that more people knew before separation begins, just to end on? One bit of advice you'd give someone who's thinking about separating, the one little nugget.
The thing that springs to mind is a metaphor that a Canadian colleague brought to my attention, don't cut what you can untie. And this idea that separating is gently unraveling the strands of the family unit, and it can actually be done in a really supportive way that doesn't sever relationships, damage everybody.
Don't cut what you can untie. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I really like that. It can be a deeply painful process, but ultimately very manageable if you apply the strategies, and that what you're doing is, a lot of people think this is the breakdown of something, but it's actually the reconfiguration of the family unit in a healthy way.
Yeah. Amazing.
So if you think of it like, actually, we're going to do much better apart, and our children are going to do much better apart, and this is a good thing, and we're going to do this well.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So you've been listening to Harriet Moir in conversation with Dani Nicolson and Tara Cathie-Clark on episode 2 of Tell Me Moir season 2, in which we've looked at how to prepare yourself to leave a relationship. Now, for more information about Dani and her services, go to www.ripplelegal.co.nz. And for more information about Tara Cathie-Clark and her services, you can go to the 360 Health website, www.hhp.co.nz. And I just also wanted to remind you about the Women's Refuge Services and Shine, you said, Tara, and that all information provided today is not legal advice. So please be sure to speak to a lawyer or psychologist about your specific situation. Ka kite.
Ka kite.
You've been listening to Tell Me Moir, where the conversations with women are brave, bold, and occasionally make you clutch your pearls in a good way. Heard something that made you gasp, giggle, or immediately text your group chat? Don't worry, we've got you. You can replay this episode or dive into more colourful conversations at oar.org.nz or find us on your favourite podcast platform. For more information about my shows and shenanigans, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Harriet Moir Entertainer MC. And thanks to Rochelle Crossman, family lawyer, for her tremendous support of season 2. Now, go on, hit subscribe. You know you want to.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.